generations to come together as our story unfolds and represents the interplay of our country's past and present. It is in our history, but also in how it has evolved to embrace optical satisfaction and new influences. Our identity as a country is not only a moment in time, but also a journey of where we have been, where we are, and where we are going. We invite you to experience the authentic heritage, rich history of Uganda. Welcome to the Uganda National Museum.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk. The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Good evening to you all. My name is Tumuhimbise. We are at Digital House, streaming live on our social media pages. That's the Alternative Uganda. That if you consider watching us from Facebook, and also YouTube channel, the Alternative Uganda as well. Every Monday at 7 p.m. we have the hotline show where we have our panelists that discuss any topical discussion as recommended by our viewers out there. Always we have our permanent panelist by the names of Honorable Paula Awich, who unfortunately today hasn't been able to be here. But nonetheless, we have, I wouldn't want to call him a representative, but at least they belong to the same Amudi wing of NRA. So, Mr. Matovu Vianney, and in the middle seat is Mr. Andrew Irumba. Andrew Irumba is that, I don't want to say that he's obsessed with Pan-Africanism, but he's that gentleman that I have known for, preaching Pan-Africanism. And for that case, he's the Speaker of Pan-African Parliament. I will share with us what, of course, precisely how far he's gone, because I understand there are awards coming so close, a few days, for lack of another word, between a few days from now. And the extreme left is Mr. Joseph Ochieno. The previous Monday we had, I don't want to say that we had running battles, of course, on agreeing on what which UPC he leads, but then he was like, UPC is one, and indeed it should be one. I should begin with Mr. Matovu to say hello to our viewers, and then we also ask Mr. Irumba to say hello, just a hello, then I take back the mandate. I borrowed that word from you.
You grab back. So I say hello to the viewers, and I will be very happy to the comments, which are very hot, not coward ones.
Okay.
Thank you.
Please, Mr. Irumba.
Hello, good evening. In other countries, it could be good morning, depending
Yeah, sure.
on where you are. Good afternoon, good night, depending on where you are. My name is Andy Irumba Katusabe. Atenyi is my pet name. I am an investigative journalist. I am the president of Indoja, an online association that manages the online media. Indoja is Independent Online Journalist Association. I work at TheSpy Uganda as the CEO and Detective UG. I am a very strong believer of Pan-Africanism. And 11 years ago, I started up a group, an association called the Pan-African Pyramid. And 8 years ago, we started an award to recognize Pan-Africanists. There are so many awards, Comrade Norman, in the world, including comedians, they have their awards, artists, they have awards, sportsmen. Nobody has ever thought about the importance of recognizing and appreciating people who died for our own existence. The Martin Luther King Jr., the Malcolm X's, Julius Nyerere is here who started that movement. Nobody has ever realized that those people also need to be recognized and appreciated. And that movement upheld to continue the struggle. So it came into my mind that we ourselves can do it. Most of the times these awards, the BET award, the award, all of them are started by the white people. But they go and sometimes appreciate an African who has an agenda that is selling for them. You know, like the way they have been promoting LGBTQ. So they find an African artist in the US or even here in Uganda, you know some. They pump them, they give them a lot of money, so you follow. But you actually don't know that you're following their
agenda. Yeah.
Yeah, so I started to challenge that. We need to appreciate our own people.
Okay. Precisely, back in the day, I think 2 or so weeks when we were here, people were like, but okay, what does Mr. Irumba carry in that basket? They even quite a basket. What is it precisely? And then you goes to Mr.
This is a bag. This is a bag like
African bag. Eh?
Like that beautiful lady has a pass or her own bag. This is my bag. It carries my money. It carries my documents.
Sadly, it's not bulletproof. It's not waterproof. But let's cross to Mr. Ochieno. Say hello to our viewers, and of course, and the way he's looking at your bag with a lot of malice. You look at how Ochieno looks.
Let me surprise you. At one time I was jumping on a plane, Ethiopian airline. Some young ladies took me aside and wanted to ask me to leave my bag behind.
Seriously?
They said, but what is this one?
It is too African.
It's a bag. I asked them, how come the other lady in front of me was allowed to enter with her bag without questioning? Because this is an African bag.
Yeah, sure.
And the ones who were asking me were Africans, Ethiopian.
They couldn't relate.
I said, for me to leave this bag, it means I'm also remaining, and you will pay me. They let me in.
Mr. Ochieno, pick it from there and say hello to our viewers, and then we shall proceed accordingly.
I was envying the bag. It's actually an impressive identity issue. We're discussing Pan-Africanism and everything else, symbolism. So Comrade Irumba as the practical face of Pan-Africanism, both in the media and as an activist, I think this is a symbolic signature, so it's quite impressive. What you've denied the viewers is that I am a permanent panelist.
Oh,
in fact, that I became a permanent panelist before Comrade whose chair I sit on, and that you need to remind the viewers that once upon a time by the Comrade Irumba, I enjoyed this show alone.
Yeah, sure.
You know, it was fantastic. Why don't you allow me to enjoy it alone when this guy's going on holiday?
We should also get awards.
But no, I think you deserve an award because when I came to this show, it's a journey. So we've been on a journey. I committed myself to this. I sometimes wish I could do more beyond our exchanges here. I still believe that beyond the awards that my brother is talking about, that our viewers recognize that we make a huge amount of effort. I'm playing the victim here. That some of us travel all around Kampala to be here. But all of us sometimes find ourselves extreme other parts of Uganda in order to come here on a Monday to be with you. Why? Because of the mission this station has, this program has. And I think it's actually quite nice that once in a while a Pan-Africanist brother in the name of Andrew is able to join in these debates, because we need to engage more young people, we need to engage young Africans, we need to engage Africans on the question of Pan-Africanism. And I've been meeting with a major citizen that maybe I shouldn't declare as breaking news nationally, an elder, slightly older than me, but someone who heads a national institution, and we spent more than 2 hours, rather cordially, discussing the challenges facing this country, and particularly the role of young people. And like Comrade Irumba is saying, part of our concern was that we don't know, Norman, that when some of us with the values we brought up with, values that are driven by convictions and decency rather than short money, because we're talking also electioneering, we wonder how many Ochienos will emerge out of your generation, and worse, how many Ochienos and your generation will emerge out of the camera ladies generation of the people of the 20s. And I'm sure that is something that makes you do. Sometimes we come here and we find you extremely exhausted because you spend sleepless nights. I find our camera people here, young, fantastic young ladies and men, you see, look at them, you know, they're genuinely exhausted. Day in and day out, particularly when the big events around town. Sometimes many of them being tear gassed, but they come here voluntarily and voluntarily seeking to be able to engage and to make sure that we build a mass foundation on which we're able to have a critical engagement both on digital media and generally across this continent. So always a pleasure being here.
Thank you. That's Mr. Ochieno from UPC. I don't know how he knew that I will have a ready time.
I am delighted to have you and me putting on red, because red is the future.
Okay, so we are two men in red ties. Anyhow, a summary of this week up to perhaps yesterday, I should say, we saw the sole candidate picking his nomination forms and expressing his interest, and that was a tribunal. I think I'm not sure that it's plot 1 because there are
plot something.
Plot 10. Is that plot 10 that they are
No, I think it's somewhere else.
The other upper one.
Administratively, I think that's why they operate from
Tango Doi's office.
yeah.
The other plot 10 is for Secretary General.
Yeah. We saw, of course, it was marred with we saw some bit of hooliganism, for lack of another word, and people were putting on yellow.
Typical.
And the police statement was that people allegedly, people who were putting on allegedly NRM T-shirts, did what they did, as we shall see on our videos. But also, what was quite interesting is that the renowned Pastor Ben Hinn, and I know he has issues with Western religion. He will share just maybe in a second also. He was blessing our big people, big leaders in this country. I saw the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament. I saw the pastor also blessing and praying for the first family, in particular the President and the First Lady. There has been lots of political events, but also now put it to Mr. Matovu Vianney Ngoma. Can you, in 2 also means, summarize how, for us and the viewers, how your week has been? At least I've given you, a tip of an iceberg of what has transpired in the previous 7 days.
I will go direct to assessing.
Without fear or favor.
Those of the week, we will read our viewers astray. It was a story. It can amuse them away. So assessing the cost of Uganda's politics. Now in this weekly observer, they made an assessment.
Yeah.
The headline was running that you need a cost of $1 billion and beyond to win the elections.
Parliamentary.
Not either parliamentary alone, because commercial thinking, the economic geography syndrome went internally and externally. This is what I express. Internal primary elections, you have also to bank some bankable contests. Now it is a bankable project. If we were going to commercial and mercantile thinking and the philosophy. And after there, you have to go back for those second to nominate and appoint and sign for you in 20s of them and beyond, of which they want. You have to use financial muscle to look for them, then you return the papers. After returning the papers, you have to have a delegation to come with you.
A delegation.
To be nominated.
They should create some bit of necessary noise to create the vibe.
And before nomination, the current law pushes you to go to the bodies which controls the qualifications you have for certifications, for whatever. Then those ones are also costs. When you want certifications in Uganda, you have to first bank some financial muscle to be able to access those papers. Then after that one, you have to go for what they call general, which
You
is
face the electorate now.
General. Then general elections will also cost picking nomination forms, going for further certifications, looking
General
for those to
campaigns.
sign for you. And that of the electoral commission, when it is parliamentary, they don't want to get supporters from one sub-county. You have
Yeah.
diverse. When you are at the presidential in districts, then it will go beyond to the assessment. I thought that they didn't want to exaggerate the figure, which is exact, those writers, but it will be in trillions. So that habit sprang during the Matthew's time. During the Matthew's time, that's when a type of the bags of this kind and other buckets confronted the churches and mosques, which they called in their language, in their Roman language, fracatero, where, where you need to expand the economic geography of the pocket. When you are handling 1 million, you need to handle trillions. So that was the race before taxation came in. So that's where we have reached. Way back in assessments, the liberation was driving us to fair, not excluding someone with the finance. But now, finance is an asylum. These who were in parliament, legislators, created it as an asylum. Those with the money, they are able. Those without, you can't get an asylum there to come and compete with them.
I will cut you short because so that we can have a balanced show. Thanks for the submissions. Now, Mr. Irumba, you see, Katusabe stands for let us pray. Yeah? Let us pray. Now, before we go into prayers for this country, what is it that you understand when someone asks you to assess the cost of an election? Not in particular about the monetary terms, because when you look at the cost, people have paid with their lives. You have seen, I think, a week or so ago in Zimbabwe, and that has become another a front line. I do not know how unique is Remiyaga. I think there must be, if they are ancestors, I think we need to go there and talk to them and or sacrifice something. If it's a white sheep or a black dog or something, because there will always be what it costs. And in most cases with the Remiyaga and some other few places, there are places where people lose lives. What do you make of that when I ask you to assess the cost of an election or politics in Uganda?
Thank you very much, my comrade. First, I'm going to categorize my argument into two. Let us first analyze, Mr. Joseph Ochieno, the human cost. Human cost. We first put it aside. Then we go into the financial cost at the personal level, but also at the national level. What the country loses as a nation, then what an individual participating in the politics. Mark my word, I'm not
I know you. Yeah, I know you are known of calling it politics.
Then the human capital. The human capital. Let me begin with the human capital. My brother Norman, and those of you watching us, today, the people in charge of preparing our elections, that they have commercialized so much, during their days, when other people were in charge organizing for them the same elections, If they had commercialized it the same way it is commercialized today, they wouldn't we wouldn't be having a president called Yoweri Museveni. Because Yoweri Museveni was born from one of the most poorest families. So first he wouldn't have even achieved the education necessary for him to come and speak to us, to convince us. But secondly, he wouldn't have raised the amount of money needed to go and say, I want to serve the people of Uganda. He wouldn't have managed. So what did those people who planned for human development do? They made sure that service to the people is not costed. That you don't need this amount of money to say, I think I have leadership skills. Because leadership skills, most times it's God-given. Just like a talent, a football talent. Football, to be a footballer, it is a gift given to you by God. The coach will only purify it, but you know that you have the talent. To be an artist, it is a gift given to you not by your mother, not by your father, but by God, your creator. The studio manager, the drum beats and so on, all those are just coming to fine-tune your voice. But you have the talent. Same applies to leadership. Leadership is God-given. Now somebody has gone and tagged the cost. That for you, Norman, for you to dream that I would like to lead Makindi, you first have to look at how much do I have on my account. If you don't have, please don't disturb us. Now, this gentleman comes from the NRM. Dr. Tango Doi, in his own report, he said, from their own internal collections, to express yourself that this is the form, I want to go and fill it, bring it back to you, Mr. Tango Doi, that I think I have the ability to stand for membership, for MPship or councillorship. You need to come with 3 million shillings. If you don't have it, please don't come. And Tango Doi is so arrogant.
The first prerequisite.
He is so arrogantly speaking. If you don't have the thing, please come here and pick just the paper. Come with 3 million. You come with a bank slip. Now, first, do you know how many young people you have blocked? For merely not raising the 3 million? Why are they doing that? They're ring fencing the leadership. That's not God's calling, and that's not politics. Because politics must be the management of society for the good. Yes. Through that.
Don't you think, for some reason, if you chose and considered such a process to be free, that it would attract the Tom, Dick, and Harry, anyone would just be
Let
there,
them
and
come.
would lose meaning?
We have appointed you, Dr. Tango Doi. We are giving you very good money. Your office is open from January to December. What is your job? No problem. Let the Tom, Dick, and Harry come. You sieve them. That's why you have these papers, isn't it? That's why you have given them those papers. What are those papers for? To go and put your qualifications. Yes, I studied this, and I think, because they have put minimum qualifications. Let me tell you, my brother, you have never distilled Waragi.
I have seen,
I was educated on Waragi. In the village, you'd go and collect all manner of matoke, put them there, then start squeezing them. The juice you get out of them, you ferment it. From fermentation,
you add sorghum and
you put all of it in the drum. From the drum, you distill for the first one. From the entire drum of 50 liters, you'd get only like 20 liters. Now that jerrycan, you have got one. You distill it again, you get 2 jerrycans. What they call kasesi. Pure!
that one that could even run mad, like it can catch fire.
What have you done first? You have called all the Tom, Dick, and Harry. But from all of those,
they go through a process.
You're only going to take 10 liters. That's what you want. Leadership must have those stages. Why are they there? They help to nurture. You are now an educated man. You started from baby class, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, why did you start from the baby class?
To go through
They were
stages.
nurturing you to be who you are today. This is leadership. From baby class, Mr. Norman, they were nurturing you to be a leader of who you are today. So you can't say, no. If you're baby class, please don't come. Come from, I want those from P7. Then, you're crazy. So, the first thing they did was to curtail. How many young people from institutions of learning can afford 3 million shillings for me to be able to exercise my right? Because leadership should be a right, just like it was during Museveni's time. I tell you, Museveni wouldn't have been who he is if those conditions were put. Dr. Tango Doi, when I watch him speak, I'm a journalist, I sometimes want to slap him. He's so arrogant. If you don't have 3 million, please don't waste our time.
Try other things. Try other things.
He has collected 3.7 billion in 2 weeks.
Yeah. I think they've even closed today. Yeah, they should have closed today.
3.7 billion. Now, that's for the party. Tomorrow, me and you and him and everybody, they are going to collect taxes from us and give them, add them. You know what the Electoral Commission does? That money that they're going to give them, they are going to dispute it in the electorate. That somebody is going to expect soap for him to be able to choose whether you're a good leader or not. It will depend on the amount of soap you're going to give him or her. The amount of soap. The elections in Uganda have become so exorbitant. That's why you see today, example is Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Do you see General Wasanda at his age with his stick? The man is not thinking about retiring. He thinks about entering politics. Why? He thinks that is the retirement place. Because once he enters there, everything will be okay for him till he dies. Even when he dies, it is us who will buy the coffin. Right now, he's not sure who will buy his coffin and who will take care of his
UPDF being a retired general.
When he dies, they are not sure. UPDF thinks, my friend, if you're a good friend to the CDF, they will give you national burial. They're not. So, everybody is trying their level best to enter parliament so that you have a good burial send-off and a good coffin and a national burial. That's the agenda. That's why they can kill the amount of violence that is being exhibited just in primary elections. Just look at Zimbabwe. Primary elections. Expressing their feelings that they don't understand. UPDF was deployed last week. I think you heard that somebody was even shot dead. And the MP, Sechikubo, shot. That is just primary. I want you to tell me what will happen in there.
Maybe before I cross to Mr. Joseph Ochieno, how special is Zimbabwe in Uganda's politics? Because it's not news. It has been like that. Remember the Kabasi era, Kabasi, of course, with Sechikubo, they had factions. I think Kabasi and Sechikubo had one line.
No.
Kutesa and I don't know who it was.
What the system built in Zimbabwe, they groomed bulls. And in every kraal, no bull can allow another bull to rise up. First, it was Sam Kutesa, the biggest bull, the fattest.
With the Hanifa Kawoya, that was the line.
Now Hanifa Kawoya comes. Now Joy Kabasi comes.
And
now
Sechikubo
comes. Now
Sodo is.
General Washande. Now
Sodo.
Each one of them is empowered differently. And by the same system. Do you know the same system that empowers Sechikubo is the same system that empowers Washande? Now go and fight.
Do you know, maybe for our viewers, do you know on record, I think worldwide, it's only in Zimbabwe where we had an election with a draw. Remember Sodo, the Sodo and Chatis era, it was the only election with a draw.
So, my brother, but for me the bigger picture is the commercialization of politics in Uganda. That today, when those in charge today were our age, expression of interest to lead at any level was free. Because I'm expressing my... And leadership was taken as a service, Comrade Norman. Today, leadership is a job. That's why I'm telling you that violence, 2026, violence is going to triple. Why? Parliament, that parliament is even, I think, more lucrative than the presidency. President Museveni gets 6 million shillings per month as a salary, the non-salary. An MP, a member of parliament, gets how much money? The non-one. But now there are other deals. So they have made that parliament a very lucrative one. That's why people are able to live there. People are resigning from URA, entering parliament. This is it. People should start interrogating themselves. How can somebody resign from URA and resign? What is there?
They have a country at heart.
People are leaving their business in Chukubo. People are leaving lecture rooms. You get it? Entering parliament. What is there? So, if you want to reduce on the violence in elections to enter parliament, you need to start looking at how you can diffuse the appetite in the parliament. You see, the only institution in Uganda that can sit here and determine its salary, it's parliament. So that must be diffused. That's why they fought an amendment to create
an independent body to determine their remunerations.
Yes. Public service. Is it public service?
Under public service.
Yes. They fought it. Because we would sit and say, if you're a member of parliament, this
how
is
different are you? You are simply an A-level graduate.
Now, today you find a member of parliament earns more money than a doctor in Mulago.
Yes.
A doctor in Mulago. And a doctor in Mulago is, you know, being a doctor, you study over 5 years, about 5 years. Now, a member of parliament has studied senior 4. After senior 4, he has got a certificate that when you take it to National Council of Higher Education, they can equate it to A level.
They put on a weighing scale and
you go to parliament. That man there, that senior 4 there with a certificate, tomorrow is going to determine the salary of a doctor. That's how close we've become. Before you come to him, let me end up with the National Council for Higher Education my comrade talked about here. No man, you're educated. In secondary and university, there is a specific fee we pay for National Council for Higher Education. Isn't it there?
Yeah.
It is, Mr. Joseph, it is put there. Fee, National Council for Higher Education. We pay 20,000.
Yeah.
Now, apart from, remember, this school where I'm studying, the school fees that I pay, the school still pays taxes to the government. But the same government that owns National Council for Higher Education has put a specific fee for me to pay as a student. Now, I have finished studying. I have paid you. Tomorrow I come to you and say, Joseph, can you verify my papers whether I studied or not? Pay me. What kind of hopelessness is this? And people are reading up paying. Nobody is questioning that salary.
What's the purpose of...
Nobody is questioning that. I have paid you for a service. Now, instead of giving even, I should even be leaving school with my certificate from
certified
you.
Already.
You should certify my paper. You don't certify it. You wait for me when I come to ask for certification. You say pay. People, I don't know what Uganda. I don't know what's wrong with Uganda. How can you steal people like this?
Mr. Ochieno is one of the Ugandans, and maybe he will take on that question. How prepared are you in regards to the cost of politics in Uganda, Mr. Ochieno, of course, under UPC, but also as a collective, as citizens? What is it that you pick from such a topical discussion when you say assessing the cost? Because Mr. Irumba, maybe later alone when we come for the other round, you know you had mentioned about the human resource, yeah, and perhaps you could write it down so that you give us more light about what you meant. Because human capital. Because I was trying to give an example of sometimes it goes even beyond money. Yeah. People's lives are gone. Because if you even look at the clip that we had being played there, you would see that people presumably mobilized by maybe some person out there to please the powers that be that we can mobilize. On reaching the street, they portrayed something pure different. Is that also part of the cost of the politics in this country? Proceed, Mr. Ochieno.
Of course it is. My two colleagues, in particular, as presented by latterly Pan-Africanist comrade Irumba. The issue is what else can I say? Except that's very sad. I think the fact that the state can do anything it wants is a confirmation that this is a nation under siege and that Ugandan citizens are on their own. Because if it was a country in which politicians were people who are in politics with conviction, people like Elder Vianney here, these matters wouldn't arise, because the politicians guiding the nation through the civil service, through the institutions of governance, would ensure that the electorate, the citizenry, that the politicians are designed to serve, are not exploited. Here the citizens are being exploited. Here the citizens are being used. Here the citizens are actually being abused. It's an outrage. Is the cost, one of them, of politics, the manner in which my two colleagues have said, one of them being ignorance? Is the cost then, therefore, one of it being
ignorance on his side?
In the populace, meaning that in a rounded way, they've been so captured. The state has been so captured. The powers of the state and their powers have been so withdrawn by the establishment that basically the owners of this country, who are the ordinary citizens, are completely, one, helpless. On the other, they are almost like without a clue about what their own responsibilities are. In other words, they're treble victims. And so from, if you see what's going on in the country, part of what Andrew is saying, you can only explain it that these are helpless people who have no clue that they're literally in prison. Because if they did, people power. If they knew, the power of knowledge, and that's the cost of this, deliberate, as Andrew said, Mr. Museveni and his bunch knew exactly the design, the mission on which they went to not only capture the state, but to break the most important equalizer in society, meaning education, and break the educational system. Part of it is what UPC built at independence, basically as the arms of the enemies of Africa, the enemies of Uganda, meaning that we quite clearly identified as ignorance, poverty, and disease. Ignorance as education, poverty as the massive economic emancipation, disease as the holistic provision of health services. That basically together wraps up what a nation state requires for her citizens. Those are exactly the things that have been withdrawn, privatized, commercialized, individualized, and citizens completely helpless. No other explanation that people would be called, and Andrew and I were talking about, I think something that David Tinyefunza, with a new name these days, talked about the youth, that there is no other explanation why an average young person might be required to come to the streets of Kampala and to go ahead and sing for somebody who has stolen from them. And there is no other way in which you can explain an average decent young 22-year-old who should be a young graduate looking for a job and demanding for that job. At the time of Mr. Museveni, they would demand for that job. In fact, they didn't have the demand because those jobs were there, But now, helplessly, does not know where the next 10,000 shillings is. And so they're being persuaded to be given 10,000 shillings on a motorbike to go and do that junk that you saw, the criminal thing that they did, putting on NRA tickets and putting on NRA t-shirts. And yes, it's allegedly from a legalistic perspective, but I'm completely convinced that those are NRA goons. And unless Mr. Museveni and his team come out to explain, and especially because these goons captured our public street, unless Mr. Museveni is also able to explain why they failed and where these people came from, then my total contention is that they're goons. But look, there is madness. How you can imagine after 40 years, and this is a nation which is 80% actively young people registered to vote, or thereabout, and an election in an organization that has ruled this country by force for 40 years has a sole candidate you refer. That is the cost of the ignorance of polity at the moment, and as deliberately designed by Mr. Museveni. No, is the explanation.
How wrong would that be? Because I think a few seconds ago, Mr. Katsabe sarcastically was like, no, this colleague is saying, why would you substitute Zidane when he's still fit to play? So how wrong is it, and why would you consider it as a wrong?
I think those may be sarcastic, but they're deliberate provocations on the psyche and emotions of young people to wake up. And that in part is what I'm trying to invoke. Because there's no explanation how Mr. Museveni, who went to the bush as a relatively young person, who had the privilege of being in politics, and including by the time he was Minister of Defense, he was a fairly young guy, come to power, abuse past leaders, claim absence of democracy, go to the bush, break people's necks, come and take power. And for 40 years, you retain the most coveted office of state. And now you are, quote, the sole candidate you're referring to. Cost of that polity. But guess what? NRA says, amongst others, I know people would be broken, their legs would be broken if they known that they want to stand, like Comrade Vianney, that he wants to stand, or maybe you've got unashamedly you've got roots in NRM. So suppose you decide that you want to go to the political organization of your father, with respect, that where does Norman get 20 million shillings, cost of politics, 20 million shillings to express that nonsensical interest to the office of Tanga Odoy for president? For parliament, 3 million Uganda shillings. Huge amount of money. You're absolutely right. Mr. Museveni's family, and I know, Mr. Museveni's family, could not, 50 years ago, even 40 years ago, they could not afford 20 million shillings. Mr. Museveni, candidate Museveni, in 1980, if candidate Museveni was asking for people to put 3 million shillings before the stand as candidates for UPM across the party, in that shambolic elections they had, because they were defeated massively in 1980. But they would not, and to their credit, they had a fair representation for a new political organization, for a new political party, UPM. They had many candidates, Andrew, across the country. But if the equivalent of 3 million shillings was being demanded from NR candidates, with calling UPM, these guys were too poor, to afford it. Okay. Museveni, some of the money that he may have, wishy in defense and things like that, maybe he would have been the candidate. And so therefore, finally, Museveni does that. And guess what? The only other political organization where the demand for 20 million shillings is pretenders in Uganda People's Congress in the name of G. McKenna.
Okay.
Pretender?
Do you know, imposters actually. Because to ask for 20 million Uganda shillings for somebody to express an interest as a leader is not only prohibitive, in my opinion, it is deliberate. It is deliberate, and these two people asking for 20 million shillings trace their records.
I wanted to ask you, like it's a legal format of asking a leading question. Would you consider politics now for the rich? It's a yes or no.
I am a revolutionary. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm a Democrat, and I'm the president of Uganda People's Congress with all intents and purposes. Uganda People's Congress was founded as Uganda National Congress as the grassroots political party for African peoples in 1952. Vianney is here as part of my weakness. You can't be that background and let go. Okay. Meaning, thankfully today, you've got a panel of three. People who are not only Pan-Africanists, but people who are committed revolutionaries. Our job is to seek to claim back our continent and claim back this country for ourselves. So, whatever the format, this struggle to reclaim the heart and soul of this country must continue. In any case, our journey, together with the young people watching particularly, is that we need to build a foundation for that in Uganda so that we're able to reclaim our continent called Africa.
Okay, when you mentioned about the likely inability of Mr. Museveni back in the day and his colleagues to participate in a highly expensive election, it reminded me of his photo at City Square in his apron, campaigning under UPM. Yeah, under UPM with his apron. And,
Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
And what that's in particular what now brings me to Mr. Vianney Ngoma. You see, Mr. Vianney Ngoma has that rich history. He was once a UPM. He was you're still UPM. Oh, okay.
But if you don't
and
mind,
also a FRONASA.
but if you don't mind,
Then he will tell us.
no man, if you don't mind actually, no, this is an emotive thing. That picture, that photo of Mr. Museveni
At City Square.
is a cowardly reality of today. That the youth of this country need to go back to that picture and invoke their emotions and see how much they've been denied and how much into prison they've been taken. Because I want to link that. You talk about the cost of this, and is it about ignorance? Andrew here said, you can't believe that people who had free education and had everything are people who 40, 50 years later can come onto the national scene, commercialize education, commercialize health, and commercialize polity, which is the emphasis of the point, in such a manner that other people's children children's children cannot afford. How criminal can it be?
He will tell you leave politics. You brought NRA at a time. Is that what you fought for before you left them and also now chose another path? you will use in the next 4 minutes. We head into a break, and of course when you come back we shall have another interesting topic or discussion about the Barado question also on whether it's also politics. Proceed. Use your 3 also means.
Thank you very much. Now there is what we call break and make. Break and make is a grab mentality, how to grab opportunities and centralize them to your way. And within democracy, what made democracy to deteriorate is the creation of democratic centrism. That one at the center to control, as you have seen. The law within the constitutions of all parties, you share the road, those to nominate MPs in districts. But now, centrism has hijacked that one. You have to come to the center. What is forcing to the center is a word which they brought to us, and they graved it with cosmetic looking. We adapt it, which is called strategy. Strategy is a syndrome of smartly targeting how to score and neglect others, or even by bad habit. As long as you go through, you can use that method. So the financial muscle, as they have been weighing these two comrades, let's check ourselves back. If we don't check ourselves, that's why we are in mistakes of what we didn't bring forward to the people to agitate them to support us. Who registered these political parties when they were starting? When we went in the advent of the politics, multipartism, as we said, nobody was registering. You could get a number required by the law. You write a constitution, you sell it to the public. Then now, let us handle the popular struggle. The popular struggle started before. They look into themselves versus the population, whether supportive or not. The realization and the common understanding came out what they call the Kasaka conference. They came out saying that the poor must elect their poor. The young, they are young. The women, they are women. The what? But now there are some of the laws we find written not internally. The form is written for the elderly. Let me give you an example. When these people who were in parliament with their financial muscle, when they left parliament, they created another seat called the MP for the elderly. That one, you find Comrade Katsavi, who was in parliament, is the one qualifying to contest. Because
you were there as a youth, now you are still there.
I see. I think I saw Honorable.
That's actually very interesting.
yes.
Previously, I think Honorable Matembe had also picked interest some time ago.
He contested
and lost. Then I see Honorable Jacqueline Babazi picked.
Contested and lost.
Oh, was that Jackie? I saw the picture of the husband.
No.
It was for her.
Jackie, yeah.
So it was for Jackie. It was Jackie picking.
I want you to use like 10 20 seconds so that we can request the break and come back shortly.
Strategy is taken thus far. When they brought Nira, very many people doesn't know why Nira is there. Because Nira took over your baptism card and what? Because those are not legal as the current law. That one came from parliament also to grab, because this one can go and register and lessen the age comes and contest on the youth seat. But
now you cannot.
Now these things, we need to check them. In 1980,
I would ask you to summarize like for in a few
1980, those UPM, UPC, CP,
DP.
they didn't register as how we are registering now. Now, when you were very poor, you are not allowed to register a political party because they want audited accounts by the auditor, certified public accountants. So there is a financial muscle they want. You can't even open an account because in the banks there is the money you start with on that account. So now, having grabbed the money and the surplus, because when you check these books, the Quran and the Bible, that is there. Those who grow more richer, and by the animal farm is even taking us. Some are more
than others.
And
okay. I hope
you talked of Zimbabwe. What is special?
Okay.
Let me give you why it is special.
If you could use a minute and we're going to break.
Within Zimbabwe, it is showing us how leadership should be. Within leadership, when you are a judge, they bring your son. The law says, surrender back the file.
Recuse yourself.
Because you are not going to be fair.
Conflict of
but
interest.
these people are relatives of those who are supposed to determine. They fail to determine because they see when they knock, they will knock themselves. So, and these ones mishandle it because of lacking the elasticity of controlling themselves, go beyond the control. That's the problem with Zimbabwe. And mostly Zimbabwe, they are all of them, they came for greener pasture there. They are not the born from the place. That's also there. And even within their families, there is the family which overlooks the other. There is the family which is beyond the other. there is the family who sees it inferior when Katshabe reads them. That one can also make things absurd because they don't want. That's what killed the leadership of Buganda here, which they are grappling with.
Okay.
The Sekabaka came as a king, doubling to a king
President.
and presidency. Then within his own royalties and subjects, there are those inferior to them whom they couldn't even spare to allow them to read them, like Benedicto Chwanuk.
Okay.
So they had to make other manipulations of allies that made them collapse forever.
Okay, we are breaking briefly for a few seconds and come back, and of course continue sharing all your comments and the entire show to the rest of your colleagues out there, that we still have senior citizens, because once one takes on the mantle as the one of the biggest Pan-Africanists here in this country, of course he's rich with the African history that he should be sharing, and of course extreme end Mr. Ochieno to give us of course his expertise. And we have I always don't want to refer to you as a bushman, but I studied bushman when I was in O level, so as long as you went to the bush and captured the power so you qualify to be a bushman. Let's come back shortly. Norman, Tumuhimbise.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Hey Teddy, have you noticed how little attention science and health issues get in the media?
Totally, Edgar, yet science information is very important.
Yeah, for sure. That's why the Health Journalists Network is here.
How can they help?
They are a group of journalists dedicated to advancing public understanding of healthcare issues through impactful reporting on health and science.
Oh, really?
Yes, they meet up every month with scientists and researchers, policymakers, and activists at the Science Media Cafes. They then relay what they discuss to the public.
Does that benefit us?
Oh yes, very much so. This helps with health and science literacy for a healthy Ugandan society.
Okay. I love getting informed about science and health issues. Health information makes all the difference between life and death. I'll look them up and engage them.
That's great. They are based all over the country.
Oh, okay. That's interesting, and they should be making real impact.
They are empowering health communities through journalism. Journalists can save lives just like doctors.
The Ugandan National Museum, a place where unforgettable memories are created. Traditions are found and a connection to our Pearl is reinforced. It is not only a testimony to the history of our nation, but also impacts knowledge of cultural and natural heritage to the present and future generations for their enjoyment. Through a variety of activities and exhibitions, we gather to discover our traditions and create new ones. The Uganda Museum is our country's cultural icon that makes it accessible for the next generations to come together as our story unfolds and represents the interplay of our country's past and present. It is in our history, but also in how it has evolved to embrace optical satisfaction and new influences. Our identity as a country is not only a moment in time, but also a journey of where we have been, where we are, and where we are going. We invite you to experience the authentic heritage, rich history of Uganda. Welcome to the Uganda National Museum.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk. The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
We come back from that commercial break, and we want to believe that you are enjoying our show. And my name is Tumuhimbise, sitting here in the driving seat of the Hotline show with the three panelists. Of course, each one of them brings their specific expertise on every topic that we share with you, our comments. Keep your comments coming by, and then if there are any questions, I'll read them to any of the people that you will have addressed such comments. Before we went into a break, we literally, Mr. Vianney Ngoma Matovu was sharing with us what could be the problem in Zimbabwe, and he would mention that there is a problem of course, those indigenous people. And I want to believe that the Honorable Sam Muktesa is one of the, okay, let us assume if it's about someone who's status, he's one of those people that were indigenous, because he had contested as MOP of Mbarara, I think it was in Mbarara North, if I'm not mistaken. Mbarara North back in the 1980. So the such kubos of this world and these other young people, for lack of another word, maybe they are too new. But nonetheless, Vianney Ngoma shares the name of those people. I don't want to say that he's a Muraro, but we have the Ngomas, the Ngomas in Gulu, in northern Uganda. What is the problem? Of course, I want to believe you're not a Muraro, though. But of course, people whose name you share, it's on record apparently that there is a big issue. In fact, the land question in northern Uganda.
No, man, if you don't mind, are you taking him straight to the Balalo thing?
Oh, okay. Well, did you?
Because I'd request for 30 seconds basically just to conclude this.
Fine, yeah.
I think it's really, really important for your young viewers. You declared that Comrade Ngoma and I are elders.
Yeah, sure.
But this is a fantastic elder too. You know, that we've been around. I need to confirm that I was a voter in 1980 general elections. I just turned of age. Two things, and recently I was having a conversation with the chairperson of the Electoral Commission. He's a fantastic guy, by the way, when we interact at a close range. And was saying that one of the things we need to do, comrade, is the nonsense that you limit the closing date for registration to 1 year before elections. Many of us would not have voted. Comrade Ngoma was talking about these things about the registrar. You know, these conversations here on your program is so deep that sometimes we wonder, we wish we could do it on a daily basis. So I think we want to do some justice to these things. So part of what he was saying, election register, the majority of young people, the bureaucracy of getting national register is so huge. So we haven't exhausted the topic of course, but I'm not going to take over your line. But when then it comes to, why would you say have elections in January and you do not extend the last date of registration to say October? Possibly even November, with this day of technology. Those days technology was neither here nor there. And we say we're a savvy economist. You know, why don't you do it? Why don't you extend to that clause? So this is emancipation of our peoples. These guys went to the bush allegedly to fight for it, something I don't necessarily agree. But many of people who went to the bush believing what their leaders told them that they were seeking for democracy. So if it's something that you fought for, why deny particularly younger people, opportunity to be able to do so? Number two, national registration. It's a very expensive process. Most of these young guys just can't afford. In my own family, I have experience with my nieces and nephews and people in the neighborhoods. Very expensive. But then finally, during the 1980 general election campaign, I went to a number of rallies. Not many, but I went to a number of rallies. I don't remember seeing a penny. I don't remember anybody even giving me a lift on a bicycle. The candidates that I saw, I didn't see them necessarily with big money. But finally, the man who went on to become Minister for Commerce, and sorry to bore you guys, but to emphasize, currently Joel Aliromara, who was chairperson of the Human Rights Commission. He's a retired, very decent guy from now. He told me this in Nairobi, that looks, Joseph, After 1979, he said, I was not even into these political things, election thing. Of course, when UPC were committed, liberation had taken place, we would go to the famine and go for election. He said elders came to their home one morning and told him that, young man, elections taking place. We think you are elders from the community. We think you are the young man with your law thing to go and represent us. So he went on to stand as a parliamentary candidate. And they said, he was a young practicing lawyer, but they didn't spend money. Now my point is it any wonder, contradiction to this Chinifunza thing that I brought, is it any wonder that today our public services are dead and the youth of this country are basically being held? So we need to review these things. While politics has been monetized by the establishment, it serves them. Part of the demonetization process, while being done by fantastic guys like yourselves in the media, and panelists like this, I think the young people of this country also need to take responsibility themselves and begin to re-sacrifice, to say, no, we need change. Enough is enough. This time round, we are going to vote for Norman because we see the excellent work he does for us in the community, we trust him. And like I saw some clip somewhere, I think in Barara and Kole somewhere, where I think people were collecting symbolic money, 1,000, 2,000 shillings, for a candidate, rather than the candidate give them money. Let people simply say that, no, we want to make sure that we get the right people and take charge and take responsibility.
Okay, thank you. I will edit to that.
I'm sorry.
And now dive into the Balalo question. If we all remember, 2023, the president issued the presidential order, which to many was, of course, abused or defied. And of late, this time around, he seems to be more serious. And he even went ahead to say that the army is in full charge to evict those people. But also ask the three of you, and this is not, maybe I could give a basic opinion, that if, for instance, one acquired land from northern Uganda from a specific family because the land there is owned by community, how wrong is that? Would it be fair for the government, for instance, to differentiate between those who fraudulently acquired land from those who legally acquired land? What's your take, Mr. Ngoma, with your colleagues who own bigger square miles of land up there?
Now,
or whether you even have some there and some cows.
The agreement or the social contract within yourselves and the population you read, when it turns out with greedy realization and philosophies, it becomes wretched, like other books you read, The Wretched of the Earth, by Fazil Fanon. Now we have the Constitution, which controls the land, because they say it is the law of the land. Within itself, it stipulates that anybody is at leisure or either free, mandated, legalized to stay anywhere within that country. Now, it has changed into Vararo. When it goes to Vararo, it will be challenging itself and the executive order within itself, because of the following reasons. The Vararo, there is no any tribe called Vararo.
Literally no.
When you go to the Constitution, we don't have an ethnicity called Vararo. That one came into the area myopic abuses, where they could say that the Northerners are classified as Bakoko. And then the Vararo, as they sleep within the kraal, guarding their animals, they are Vararo, they are within the kraal, where they sleep. And even a Northerner, who is not from Western, who is not from Ethiopia, who is not from wherever you may stipulate within the intercasturian region, has a kraal, sleeps in the kraal, is also a Mura
from northern Uganda.
The executive order should be well researched with well guidelines, not from the executive. this scope, we are just getting embarrassed here to find these young boys, the Kagamis, who didn't know anything, whom we guided in everything, in leadership, in military, to find them better organized
than those who organized them.
Sophisticated
than those who organized
them.
Those who organized them. Kagami's courts and legal settings on how to push the community starts with and ends with the LC code.
Gachacha. Is it Gachacha?
It is called Gachacha.
Gachacha.
Within their language. For me, I know their language because I went with them.
You organized them and came back and disorganized them.
Gachacha is the LC court. But with them, they don't need these people you want here in Uganda. The Odochi, this one who is the Chief Justice, Changumoi, the Gachacha who they cannot write and read, who knows the affairs there, can rule the matter and take over that judgment. But for us, it's a question of argument. That's what I hear. Argue the matter.
Because you have to argue the matter.
Argue the matter. Then when you argue, this learned fellow will adjudicate. Adjudications will be judgments of fallacy, of funny things, of sides.
You don't reason the matter.
And when
you argue the matter.
You argue the matter. The arguing brings adjudications. That's why the judgments, they call them adjudications. When it goes to that far, when the judiciary itself is fully embedded with corruption, that's how songs like Omwavuta Singa Musango, that the rich is the one to take over, to win the case, comes in. So likewise, those of the Bararo. And the envy, you may handle the malice. I am so malicious because this one came poor, is more richer in herdsmanship. I want him to go and lose. You can be used as a machinery to fight people's malice.
Okay.
So that of the Bararo, let it go down there to the LC court and LC councils to determine, as we agreed. There is one time I requested you to invite Kahindo Tafiri here to testify, not to argue whether he knows or not, to testify after the struggle in 1986. People could not trust us and understand what we are talking because they didn't know the program and the objectives. We had to sell them to them. Kahindo Tafiri was among the team at the sub-counties of Uganda going, telling them, now what we agreed with them, because Kahindo Tafiri from President's office at the center
was the CPC?
Could not, the CPC
the principal Commissar
was Vesige.
Okay.
Could not chair. But now this Katusabe from Kampala chairs the Mpako team in there in Mpango. Is the one to sit in front. But by that time, Kahindo Tafiri could come at the center in the office of the president. But at the sub-county, that meeting must be chaired by RC3 chairperson. But now, when even national events, they are not national events. When we go to Ryantonde for a national event, the one of the presidency, who is a minister, is the one to chair. The organizing committee, national organizing, is the one. Those LC ones are outside there in the crowd.
They are following.
They are in the crowd.
They are also followers.
Controlled by crowd controllers, the police who studied crowd control. They are all, but by the time, the other time I'm talking about, these ministers could sit outside. Then from chairperson LC, RC, not LC, RC 5, 4. Then 4 was grabbed. I don't know where it went. It no longer
Yeah,
exists.
it is silent now.
Then three ones.
Then 2 1.
And the president.
So it was bottom up approach.
And the president could not buy drummers. These drummers are these who are being appointed by him. After the rally, could sit separately with the local leadership. Then the local leadership brought demands. They couldn't praise. They bring demands. We agreed what? What was the terms? How account? Have you fulfilled this? Why is it that this one is missing? But now it is a rally. Disco, louder speakers.
Okay.
Then they drive back to Kampala.
Okay, let's
Breaking neck.
yeah, sure. Okay, Mr. Katsabe, now, because you see your name is just
Let's pray.
Let's pray. And I think I don't want to say that.
Let's pray to the Bararo.
Okay. Do you find Mr. Museveni intentional and serious when it comes to the Bararo and land question in Uganda at large?
Now, let me tell you something, comrade.
Because you are an investigative journalist, I am sure. Because I've read some of your articles and, of course, trying to dig deeper in regards to corruption scandals in some land grabbers. And that one I must thank you on behalf of Digital TV. How intentional, in your view, or unserious, the other way around, is the president with the presidential order?
Let me tell you something. These people, President Museveni is, I am not so sure that he's still in charge.
So who's in charge? In your view, who's in charge?
I am also not sure.
So the country is on its own?
This country will be on auto drink. I'm telling you, I'm not so sure. Let me tell you. These people who came and wrote the constitution in 1995, they have started amending it, simply taking the interest of an individual. Now, an individual has reached a point of even starting to amend the constitution alone now. The other time he was involved in it to amend. That is an excessive order, Bararo leave. But what is the constitution saying? The constitution that you said says a Ugandan is free to live anywhere in Uganda. But what is he trying to treat? This is the problem. The law, if you're in court, a good judge, and you're a lawyer, that's the good thing. You're a lawyer, you studied law. A good judge will adjudicate over 2 issues. One,
facts and the law.
Facts and the law. But also there is, what was the intention? The law says this.
Why did it come to Chua?
That's the law. But also, what was the intention that this person has committed this crime? If a murder has happened here, the court will investigate 2 things.
Malice forethought and
murder, forethought. Second is the intent, isn't it? I have just gone back to school to study law. My first son has graduated as a law student. I mean, he has completed law. Now he's going to LDC. Every time we're discussing at home, he's challenging me with illegal gymnastics. So I told him, you man, you cannot challenge me here. I have gone back to school to learn law. Because most of the times I'm a paralegal. I actually sometimes reason these things better than lawyer. So I've said that the interest in this Uganda is to add the paper. Add it. It's a paper. Go back to school to study law. Now, Museveni is now fighting with the intent of the Bararo in Acholi. The law, he has now left the law. Leave the constitution there. The constitution says you can stay. But now what is the intent? That's what he's dealing with now. Now, the intention of the Bararo in Acholi needs to then 2 things: the law and the sober mind. Now, the Museveni of today is trying to use the sober mind when he doesn't have one. The Bararo are naturally, some of them with bad intentions, to annihilate their Acholis. Some of them, they first dispossessed them their wealth, including the cattle. They stole all the cattle from their Acholi. Now these people brought in cattle. But you're bringing in cattle. Some of them have not very well discussed with the owners of the land. They get a Norman who is a drunkard in the village, but belongs to a clan. They talk to Norman at night during Azono. By morning they have signed an agreement. Then at night they will bring 1,000 cows. At night. Your intention is to use, you are using this son in that clan, you are using him to encroach on that land. By doing that, you are dispossessing the other members of the clan. You are using one Norman to dispossess the rest. Remember, this is a communal land.
Yeah.
Communal. So you are using a Norman to say, no, I bought here. But you bought here. What is the system of land here? Land tenure here. You know? I saw some people, Andrew Mwenda was saying my namesake, and my elder in journalism. I said, no, if that is the issue, then even Uganda should do the same. If you had to ask the kingdom of Uganda, if they had an opportunity to unwind the clock, they would also call for the communal land tenure system. This system has instead dispossessed them. You get it? If they had a chance of revising the term, they would go back to what? So it means the actual land when the communal system tenure is what? Is better than the one that is being practiced in Uganda. So for me, that's not an argument. So now President Museveni is trying now to find a solution for the intention of the Balaro in Acholi. But he has made great mistakes. One, let me tell you, my brother, Jennifer Musisi, when he was here as KCC, as ED KCCA, he tried to find a solution for border borders. Do you know what they told President Museveni? They even created a fake report, intelligence report, that this woman is trying to organize the border, but she's in the process of organizing the border industry. She's spelling our votes. She's spelling our votes by organizing the border industry. And Museveni agreed with the intelligence, and he chased her. In other words, you are saying, you, Mr. Museveni, you are a beneficiary of this organization. Now, the borders in town, they can even see a presidential convoy moving. A border wants also to move along. Me, a driver of a car, I will stop. Patiently stop for the president to pass. Even the prime minister will stop. Even some of these ministers, some other ministers, when I see them, because I ask myself, if I give him space and he goes, what do I lose? Nothing. A border man doesn't want. Why? Museveni is the very one who gave them these horns on him. To the extent that today, a policeman in the traffic lights, he will charge you, Mr. Norman, for forgetting to put on a seat belt. Meanwhile, as he has stopped you to charge you over a tire. A tire. You have 4 tires. One of them is not looking so good. Not bad, but not looking so good. He will stop you and charge you. As he's doing this, charging you, a border man is using one way, going his way. He's even dodging not to be knocked. Meanwhile, he's bent in your car charging you. A border man wanting to knock a police officer. The border man is riding in one way. Me who is riding in the right way, he has stopped him over a very minor issue, and he's talking a lot of law, a lot of English. He's getting annoyed, calling everybody on a radio call, on what? On phones. The border man passes, another one passes. The policeman is dodging him, not to be knocked. He has gotten boosted by the system. So the president is presiding over. He feels more protected when he is in such a disorganized society. I went to Rwanda. The same border industry, extremely organized, is voting the regime. When you come to Kampala, the only way to sustain that vote of the border industry is to leave them disorganized as they are. Are you seeing the two things? That this one is being elected for organizing this country. This one is being elected for allowing the disorganization to go on. These are two. And the other one is the son of this one. This boy, Kagame, was lectured by these ones. He has organized his country. Today we are using it as a yardstick. Now, the only yardstick that they use on behalf of Uganda in the region is how do you cling on to power? You use violence. Kenya that used to be very organized. Now William Ruto is ever getting lectures from Entebbe. That's why you see the killing now. That's why the disappearing. By the way, Kenya didn't know that you, Norman, right now, as big as you are, that you can disappear. And they look for you for 1 week. They don't get you. And on the second day, you appear in court and you are remanded. Kenya didn't know these things. Now they have started happening. Kenya didn't know that police can come and clobber you and you die and the government continues. Kenya didn't know. That's why today some of them are even, they are surprised that things are happening. But where is Ruto learning them? Here. South Sudan, the South Sudanese youth, they didn't know that if our army can fail and our president fails and he wants to resign, but a neighboring country and soldiers can come and sustain him. They have learned it now. So now, right now, South Sudanese, even if they don't want to react Machar, even if the army can do nothing, for as long as the neighboring army can go on the service, they can be in power. You get it? It can go on and on. All the region, you can see Tanzania. Another classic example is Tanzania. Look at what Suluhu is doing to opposition members. This never used to happen. They are learning from where? So the only thing now left to learn from Uganda is how to cling on power by force. Beat them up.
The rest they have learned it, now they are left with one.
Yes.
So do you want to mean that the presidential directive, this order here, is politically motivated, especially now that we are in that season?
This is politics. This is politics. Let me tell you. If President Museveni was very serious about the Bararo issue, the first executive order he released in 2023 would have been effective. Don't even ask, when he wanted the court martial not to be disbanded, even when it went up to the Supreme Court, what has happened? Has it not come back? How many months has it taken to come back? Isn't it a few months? Because he has a personal vested interest. If he had a vested interest if he believed that removing the Bararo from Acholi would bring peace, if he had vested, if that's what he believed, they would have left yesterday. But from 2023, he released the executive order. It has not been effective. He has released another one. When you read his explanation, he's like massaging them. Just like his statement he released on Iran and Israel war. Did you read and understand? The three, Iran, Israel, America, whom did he blame? All of them are his friends now. Did he tell you who was wrong? In a war, there must be something wrong.
Of course,
there must be. Now, which one did Museveni identify? Did he identify any?
Maybe.
But he spoke very good history. If you hit very good lectures. So that's how he confuses you. So even right now, he's confusing the Acholi people that Museveni is with us. I have even heard this morning somebody telling me now that you wait, in the coming election in 2026, President Museveni is going to sweep the entire northern Uganda. Sweeping Acholi, the votes. He's rest assured of the vote because of this
directive,
executive order. The Bararo will also vote him because right now they are there on his third eye being closed. You fail to let him, he will enforce the executive order. If you realize it, when he released this second executive order, what did his son do? Or what did he say? Do you remember? Do you know that his son released a tweet which was contrary to his father's? He said the fourth commander, this man I've forgotten, that the Bararo should listen to what the fourth commander there will tell them. You get it? They should listen to what the soldier, the fourth commander there should tell them, of which is contrary to what Museveni is saying. He was not enforcing the commander-in-chief's order. No, there is something that he told his fourth commander in northern Gulu, which he told the Acholi, the Bararo, to follow suit. You get it? So already the commander-in-chief's idea about the Bararo is different from the CDF. The CDF is the son of who? Of Norman?
Of the president.
You wish.
And I don't want to attach feelings, Mr. Katsabe. Of course, before we leave here, we shall ask you also to apply your name out there when you live here to Kusaba, to pray. Is there anything that thine eyes can meet, Mr. Ochieno, in regards to the Baralo question? In any case, what do you think is the problem up there in regards to land acquisition by the Bararo?
No, the problem is national. The problem is national, and unfortunately the problem is actually in State House. The
I thought State House should be having solutions, not problems.
Yeah, indeed. The State House should be the solution, but it's the problem. And that's where the whole problem started. Again, I will say it's a shame that after 40 years of NRA, we can have the Balalo, as Comrade Ngoma was referring to, almost in a manner which is so excessively identity driven, in some areas misunderstood. But if you look at the tweets of Mr. Museveni's son, with potentially terrible consequences if you consider what Comrade Ngoma went to do and did in Rwanda and the consequences of genocide in Rwanda. I want to tell you, State House in Entebbe, this country has had land issues before. Globally, two big land conflicts are taking place now. One is the NATO-Russia conflict. I repeat, West versus Russia conflict with Ukraine at the center. We just simplify it as Ukraine and Russia, but it's basically a NATO thing. So that is land, power, strategy, geopolitics. The Arab-Israeli conflict, which has happened all through nearly my lifetime. In fact, all my lifetime, considering the fact that the State of Israel was established by force in 1948. And since then, Israel has had a direct impact on our polity because, in part, Israel caused Idi Amin. Did you know that? And Israel, their Western allies, hence went ahead and caused the instability we've had in this country. The Arab-Israeli conflict. The independence government of Milton Obote took a very specific position, not only in consolidating independence, but opening up credits to them. Pre-independence from 1959, guaranteeing the protection for our Banyarwanda Africans in Uganda, and at independence consolidating the thing of the African identity. And yet, side by side with that, was an Israel that wanted to use Uganda as a strategic base. The Obote government refused or were not cooperative. The discussions around the Anyanya in the north of Sudan, the position of Egypt, and of course then Uganda's position on the Arab-Israel conflict, which is about land. Right now, the big thing is Anglo-American Israeli war against Iran, but basically it's an Arab-Israel conflict because that is the bottom line, and it's about land, the Palestinians versus the Jews. In this case particularly Zionist Jews, extremists, because a good proportion of progressive open Jews recognize that the land belongs to both of them, both the Palestinians and Jews, and the right to self-determination for both sides, and a practical reality of two peoples living side by side with each other. You come here, I think one of our colleagues was referring to the question of the Buganda Kingdom. Buganda Kingdom contributes directly to the state of Uganda today, including how NRA came here. People like to confine the conversation about to 1966. But the truth is that part of the events that led to 1966 was the post-independence government's resolution that the conflicts between Buganda and Bunyoro over land be resolved in a referendum. I am delighted.
The lost counties.
Lost counties. I'm delighted because I'm very unapologetic about it, that my party pushed for that referendum. The referendum took a course in which Buganda Kingdom, a certain section of people Buganda did not like. These are open conversations we need to be able to discuss. That led to the 1966 crisis. And you know what led to the 1966 crisis definitively? Your camera lady and others will need to know that one of the things was the Buganda Luchiko instructing that central government should leave the soil of Buganda. Land, and the Republic of Uganda finding itself and this capital on the land of Buganda. And central government responded, hence the Lubiri incident, and then eventually the Republican Constitution. Land, you can continue. Fast forward, 1981, when the NRA bandits chose to leave Barara North, where Sam Kutesa had defeated Museveni, they came to Buganda to launch a war of, basically call it a war of criminality, because I'm very definitive about it. In the Luwero was a war of criminality against an elected government. But they did it on Buganda land. In Buganda land, the areas where NRA initially occupied, they controlled and chased people, you know. But the people who were chased also from Buganda were predominantly people of northern and eastern extraction, non-Bantu. Until today, that is on the record, where particularly people from Tororo, including my fellow Jabs, who are still waiting for compensation from NRA, but like Comrade Andrew says, when it's not convenient. So Museveni gets blank checks from the east. So Puajo Badola, who lost land and everything else, were dispossessed. Businesses. So people forget these things. Many of those people were dispossessed predominantly by extraction by Nyarwanda, who came in as refugees. So that's very criminal, illegal, including the Kagames. They did not have a right to be in Luwero. A section of Ugandans who had joined NRA, just like possibly my elder here, you know. So those are legitimate Ugandans, but in an illegal war. Chasing, dispossessing a section of Uganda in a land and space in which they had settled over a period of time. Land. Do you know what happens? The NRA guys capture power. They go to the north. Do you know what? The initial war that started, particularly in Acholi, it was not LRA. LRA came into this player nearly 5 years after NRA had established itself. The war that started was basically a war of seeking to neutralize the Acholi power. But from then on, then came this thing about displacement, which the Tinyefunzas talk about, you know, gathering, mobilizing people to concentration camps. Now, very quickly, I was then a leading young activist in exile. One of the campaigns that I was doing, and others, was to expose the war of criminality by NRA in northern Uganda, you know, but also the fact that NRA was forcefully pulling people from villages and communities and fixing and containing them in concentration camps. That's how the concentration camps happened. And we continuously argued that they did not need to do that if you want to protect the citizens, that, oh, it was easier for them to be controlled. That is another subject that I think the Andrews here will have to be able to debate again. It's not surprising that fast forward, that happened in Acholi, that happened in Lango, that happened in Teso, that happened as part of my own Bukedi. But particularly the three communities and West Nile. The war ends with our help, our support meaning people like myself and my party, campaigning to push Museveni's friends to talk peace and end the war. After the end of the war in northern Uganda, stop of the gun, Acholi, if we're confining ourselves, needed post-conflict reconstruction. They actually needed to be resettled back into their land by the state, because that's the role of government. They need to be resettled back to their land. They need to be supported in terms of agriculture, education, and things like that. They need to be compensated. But above all, these people needed psychosocial support. NRA provided none of that.
Is that a reason for which they lost part of the land, either by selling it off or something?
No, but I'm saying fast forward now, instead of providing a post-conflict support, you then go ahead and you see, oh, huge villages of land. Those villages were once upon occupied. Forget about even the legalistic bit of customer land and private land. You know, you come ahead and sweep half of Kampala, confine them in Machinde military barracks. You know, come back 5 years later, say, oh, you know, suppose it was Kawempe that we had declared. oh, there's an open land there, free land, let's go ahead and bring Balalo land, Katu. In which case then you've been bringing Mulalo, who has been pushed, Mulalo, whatever the definition, who's been pushed from Tanzania by the Chikwetes. That's what's happening in northern Uganda. But anyway, I'm making it brief, because it's a long contextual history. But then if you link whatever is happening in Acholi, and you recognize the fact that these are pastoralist communities, what is special about the Balalo? You know? The Karamojong, a community like that. The Teso, a community like that. By the way, before these bandits went to the bush, the communities with the biggest amount of cattle.
Bandits, that's the word of Milton Obote.
He's a student of Obote.
Acholi had huge amount of cattle eaten by NRA. Teso had huge amount of cattle eaten by NRA. Lango had huge amount of cattle eaten by NRA. Even some of the Karamojong cattle, they accuse them of rustling, eaten by NRA. This is on the record, kind of stuff. You know, so what do we do? Because allegedly now we have a Balalo, forget about other indigenous Ugandans who own land, and that's something we can discuss. Some of the people in Acholi right now, of this Balalo, are people who were chased from Tanzania. How did people who were chased from Tanzania move from Tanzania and find their way all the way across Karuma and find themselves in Acholi? Moreover, many of them armed. How?
I may not have an answer.
We're discussing Nira. You know, how?
Okay.
You know, so unless Mr. Museveni's regime can explain that, the Balalo in northern Uganda is a project and it's an NRA project. And there was the Basita clan conversation literature that went around in 1992, you know. Sometimes when I look at that, you know, and some of us, because at the time, as I said, I was young, fresh, but very sharp on these things. Sometimes I was wondering that, maybe some of these are propaganda. They want to sell propaganda to discredit the Musevenis and other things like that. When you go into the details of some of these things, it's very difficult to dismiss these things, that it wasn't a plan that Museveni and co, and if you get the tone of his son about the Bachwez and everything else. But this is not a project, and the project Uganda, to dispossess Acholi people, and they need to dispossess the whole of the Republic of Uganda if you see what happens on X.
Okay.
So it is much more complicated than that. And finally, Mr. Museveni is wrapping up the eyes of Acholi people, like Andrew saying. Museveni knows it's a project and is playing these guys, and at the end of the day, Museveni is not with Acholi. Museveni is seeing that his project happening. He realizes he's cleverer than some of these people, knowing that, well, if it's a backlash, let me play safe. That is all he's doing. Museveni is only playing politically safe, and this election year, but the bottom line is the Balalo question in Uganda is not confined to Acholi. The Balalo question is a national question. We need to be able to have a conversation. And finally, why is it that we are treating Balalo of this particular category specially, and we are not treating the Balalo of Karamoja specially? Why aren't we giving the Karamojong the opportunity to also go and have graze in the Ankole category?
Okay.
Why?
I don't have the answer to your why. I want to. We have less than 7 also minutes. But of course, you have taken a lot of time, Mr. Ochieno, to address the Balalo question.
I'm sorry.
What would you have done differently to solve the Balalo question? You have your 2 minutes, and the same question will go to Mr. Andrew Irumba. But of course, as you give the answer, you say your closing remarks. So literally in 2 minutes, how differently would you have handled the Balalo question?
I cannot change what I had earlier emphasized. This is a communal or a community issue. The institutionalization or the advent of resistance councils were to allow and give the opportunity for every society to best manage their affairs than inviting the foreigners to think and determine for the affected party. So now the local councils down there, they are supposed to handle this matter so that the state or any other interested party to support the ruling of the community. If those who are affected can direct with guidelines, because when you are giving orders, you have to issue instructions on how it should be executed. With guidelines, they should go there. Let me go into the question of raw conflicts and challenges military. They are telling us by words, not going by the act, to have what the registration say, Uganda People's Defense. Now Uganda People's Defense, changing the defense and security to eviction. How can it look like? It is like how they spoiled the police. It is for policing. When you are policing, you are cleaning. Now the policing goes with fabrications of charges, goes with charges, questions on handcuffs to courts, where you find you are fulfilling my anxiety to have this one penalized or punished or mistreated.
So in short, you encourage the local councils to manage their problems because they are the ones on the ground.
And if it were by that management, they shouldn't have crossed and occupied the place. They would have been blocked before occupying.
Okay.
The rival power, the upper hand, is the one which took them there.
Yeah.
It may fail to remove them because they can mistrust or disagree or betray what you agreed with.
Okay. I want to come back to you. I want to believe those of you were your closing remarks. Mr. Katsabe, mark my word and selection of a name because you have so many, but I've chosen Katsabe.
I love it.
Katsabe, take it on. You close in 2 minutes.
When this government
in regards to what you would have done.
When this government was coming to power, if the LC1 system had power, this is another question, the land question. Today, you want to bring a land question to the High Court, or even up to the Supreme Court. Those individuals, as highly educated as they are, they don't know the history of that particular land. They don't know who is the true owner. The LC1 chairman in the village, plus his committee, they knew that Mr. Norman's land starts here and ends there. If you wake up at night and you because you know some bayae normally cut this bulamula, they go and put it somewhere, then they cover it. Then they only come to start demanding that is their land when it has sprouted out. If you did that in the village, they would tell, because they knew that your land starts here and ends there. So the LC1 system in the village was the best court to solve land-related issues. The Balalo now that Museveni is in here, State House Nakasero, trying to adjudicate over the chairman of LC1 of that particular land, that chairman knows whether the boy who sold that land to Mulalu truly sold his land. And because they should have said, the LC1 chairman should have said with his committee. They would, even before they said, they would have told you, this is not the son of this man. They would have even told you, this is not the land of this community. The owner of this land is not around. But now, they disempowered the LOC system and they usurped all the power and took it to State House. Now the man is seated in the State House giving an executive order. When you reach on the ground, you find that the history of the land is completely different. Right now, one of his sentences is saying, solve this problem. Let every Malaro first leave the actual land. Then we start verifying who bought proper and who did not. No. No, man. What should be done first is what he wants to be done last. So the chairman LC1 of that village should have first given his side of the story. Who owns this land? If there is no Moraro, how did he come here? So When you go to Rwanda, I keep using it. The LC1 system is working. That's why there are few cases at the higher in courts. No, these land cases don't reach Kagame. For what? If you brought that case to Kagame, he would go and whip the LC1 system. I was in Rwanda, Gitarama, something.
Gitarama. There's Gitarama.
I went there. Some medicine were missing. And a police officer came and asked, you people, by the time this woman reached at this hospital, what is the village hospital doing? The owner, the manager of the village hospital, what you'd call here health center,
like 3 or 4.
He was called and charged. Because by the time this woman came to the national hospital called the Mulago Hospital, or the Wing Hospital for Puto, what about the other health center for? This medicine is supposed to be there. The man was charged. He was there. So you can imagine that when a patient leaves, by the time your patient leaves your village hospital, come to the national hospital, there is an explanation which you need to give. Either you wrote, you requesting for that medicine, then somebody delayed, they will explain, they will find out. You explain this way in police custody. But come here.
It's a different. You have less than a minute, Mr. Ochieno, kindly.
No, I think the Balalo must, under the circumstances that I know and Mr. Museveni knows, the Balalo should leave Acholi. Acholi needs support in a post-conflict reconstruction rather than all these other things. But the bottom line, at the end of that, we need to find a way in which Ugandans can freely live and trade and do businesses across the country. That happened before, it can happen. But as far as the Balalo question is concerned, it's more than that. There is oil, there is minerals, there are other things, and there is exploitation and subjection of the Choli. Something that maybe is not even good enough for this conversation because it can provoke so many other major issues. And Ugandans know it.
I will close with just, I think, just 2 comments from one from Mwesige Joram. I think he was trying to tap into what we're discussing about the Zidane. And he said, those are 2 things. Museveni and football player. Football is business, politics is leadership, with the element of rights for everyone to rule. Democracy and Uganda is not a monarchy. Julio Josh says, I am live from Remiaga, Zimbabwe. Team Sechikubo forever. Anyhow, our colleagues who are watching us, I can't even add a second. See you tomorrow. If I'm not mistaken, tomorrow there is a special broadcast at the PFF offices. Our team will be there to also capture what is happening there, on whether or not it's a formidable force to to advocate for good governance. But of course, like any other forces out there, we pray that every citizen out there takes this time round to critically analyze every single candidate out there, and for crying out loud, vote sense, kindly vote sense, not soap. Stay blessed. Norman, I'm out.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.